our topic is the American Revolution settlement. First, we'll be talking about the American fur traders and soldiers. The first people who were Americans to arrive in Wisconsin were fur traders and soldiers. People traded many things. They traded food, tools, and cloth to trade the Indians for fur. John Jacob Astor built all the trading posts for the fur traders. Most fur traders worked for a company. John Jacob Astor owned the company. The company was called American Fur Company. John Jacob Astor hired people in Wisconsin to work for him. The American Revolution. A revolution happens when people fight to replace one government with another government. The colonists declared their independence from the British. In the Declaration of Independence, it states that the British will no longer rule the colonists. A colonist is a settler in a colony. A colony is a settlement that is ruled by a country far away. Thomas Jefferson wrote the Declaration of Independence. On the Declaration of Independence, the largest name is John Hancock. When the Revolution was over, the French and Indians continued to trade things. Becoming the Badger State. Why are we called the Badger State? We became the Badger State because lead miners would dig holes and slept in them like badgers would.
This is a badger. The badgers are state animals. Pioneer fathers. The father always buys their land. In Wisconsin, most of the land was covered with tall trees. Then he starts by clearing the trees. The father always decides to build the cabin with them. The cabins were usually small. The cabins usually only had one room. A couple of days later, he would build a barn for the animals and a fence around it. Pioneer mothers. Pioneer mothers had hard work. The mothers sewed every single piece of clothing for the family. The mother grew vegetables used for cooking and making medicine. They also grew their things like wheat or corn to sell. The mother always kept a small garden near the cabin. The mother would either cook food on the wood-burning stove or the steaming hot fireplace. Most or all of the food was made on their own. Pioneer women also made soap, dipped candles, and sewed wool into yarn. When it was time to harvest, the women helped the men in the fields. The fireplace also heated the cold cabin.
This is a wood-burning stove which the mothers would cook their stuff on.
Pioneer children. Children slept in odd places. They slept on lofts under the roof of the cabin. The beds were made out of straw and grass. Pioneers had hard jobs. The children cleaned up the messes around the house. The children helped their mothers cook food. The younger children carried twigs and branches for the fireplace in the cabin. When the children get older, they carried water from outside and cut wood.
This is a horse and buggy which the pioneers would use to get around. Pioneer schools. Pioneer schools were really strict. Pioneer children who did not pay attention would have to stand in the corner or would be whipped with a wooden rod. Sometimes pioneer students who did not pay attention had to write the same sentence hundreds of times. Students always had to sit up straight, be quiet, and always had their lessons memorized. Pioneer schools were made by logs. Children from every grade learned in one room at the same time. Children sat on wooden benches. Children wrote with chalk on chalkboards. You had to say every story exactly when you went to a pioneer school. If you could not remember a word or you messed up, you would have to start all over. Learning meant memorizing when you went to a pioneer school. If they didn't, they would be punished. They would go to school for 4 months, and the rest of the time they were helping their family on the farm and helped their mother cook and clean up messes around the house.
Little House. Laura Ingalls Wilder is a famous author of little kids. She wrote about how her family grew up there. They grew their own crops, hunted their own animals, and the hard times and the fun times they had. She was born in Pepin and grew up there. If you go to Pepin, you can still see her house she grew up in. Her maiden name is Laura Ingalls, but when she got married, her name changed to Laura Ingalls Wilder.
And this is her house in Pepin, which you can see if you go to Pepin.
And this is Laura's family. This is Pa, Ma, baby Carrie, Mary, and Laura.
Pioneers traveling by water. Pioneers would travel by water. They used boats. It was faster than walking. pioneer life. Each pioneer family member had a certain job to do on the farm. Lead mining. People came to Wisconsin from other states to lead mine. They used it to make bullets, pipes, and paint. Lead mining brought more people to Wisconsin. Men opened mines and built smelters. Smelters were buildings with very hot ovens.
The Northwest Territory. Wisconsin became part of the Northwest Territory after the Revolution. The Northwest Territory included the states Wisconsin, Michigan, Illinois, Ohio, Indiana, and part of Minnesota.
The Black Hawk War. Black Hawk War was the last large war between Indians and settlers. Black Hawk was an Indian chief. He said that the settlers should be the ones to leave. He led his people across the Mississippi River to take back their lands and it turned into a war. The natives were outnumbered. Many Black Hawk tried to surrender, but they were attacked and many were killed.
Dirt roads. Back in the day, there were dirt roads. They were Indian trails. Some of the trails were narrow that you couldn't fit your wagon on. Traveling was slow and long. Pioneers come to the Northwest Territory. Boys and girls came to the Northwest Territory. They walked next to their family's wagon. Wagons were pulled by horses and oxen. They sometimes slept in the wagons. The wagons were covered with all the family's belongings. When they became hot, they had to cool off in streets. The Northwest Ordinance. The Northwest Ordinance was a plan for parts of the territory to become states. The Northwest Ordinance set rules. Here are the rules. Slavery was not allowed. Land would be set aside for public schools. Settlers could practice any religion.
The colonists get angry. The 13 colonies were angry with the British. The British forced the colonists to pay their taxes. Colonists were not allowed to vote. There was a war for America to gain their freedom from the British. The colonists wanted a name for themselves. They named themselves the United States of America.
The British in America. British gained control of Canada on the land east of the Mississippi River. 13 colonies on the east coast already belonged to Great Britain.
Goodbye, British rule. British soldiers came to America to fight the colonists. The British soldiers had more men than the colonists. The colonists did not have enough soldiers. The colonists did not have enough guns, warm clothes, or food. The colonists were farmers, merchants, and the men were not soldiers. The French helped the Americans in the war. The French brought money, guns, ships, and soldiers. After years of fighting, it looked like the Americans were going to lose the war. The British thought they would never lose to the Americans. The Americans won the war with the help of the French. And this is a picture of the colonists.